Revealed, the incredible moment a billionaire discovers his pregnant ex with a surprising CEO. Daniel Mercer raised his glass, his smile flawless, yet it faltered slightly as laughter echoed around him. The bright lights of San Francisco's skyline were a stunning backdrop to the evening's celebration, drowning out the noise of his inner turmoil. Tonight was supposed to be the pinnacle of his success, the launch of his latest tech creation, but all he felt was an ache in the pit of his stomach. As he scanned the crowded room, searching for a moment of serenity amid the elite's raucous laughter, his breath caught. There she was, Lisa, radiant and unmistakably pregnant, cradling her baby bump with an aura of serenity that felt foreign in the high-stakes world he inhabited. The sharp reality hit him when he noticed Ethan, the ambitious CEO of a competing company, wrapping his arm around her. The sight pierced Daniel like a blade, stirring an unrecognizable blend of envy and regret that he thought he'd buried long ago. What were they talking about? Did she even think of him? The painful memories came rushing back, their late-night conversations that sparked dreams, their shared aspirations flickering like dying embers in a cold fire. He'd sacrificed everything for this empire: wealth, recognition, a seemingly endless grasp for success. But in this moment, as he stared at the woman who once inspired him to reach for life beyond his boardroom walls, all he felt was hollow. Was his entire existence just a facade of success? Before he realized it, he was moving toward her, each step feeling like wading through murky water, suffocating and thick. As he approached, heated words caught in his throat. Lisa's eyes widened, softening just briefly before once again being clouded by the years of, what? Distance? Betrayal? The discussion escalated quickly, accusations slicing through the air like daggers. You chose this, didn't you? Left me with my ambition while you found someone who truly sees you. The bitterness tasted acrid, and he was acutely aware of the corporate suits watching, judgment lined in their expressions. Then, standing there, the moment clicked. The child is yours, Daniel, she said, her voice steady, yet trembling. Time seemed to suspend around him, her words lingering in the charged atmosphere like a thunderous echo. The revelation was colossal, shattering every preconceived notion of his carefully crafted life. His instincts flared with a surge of protectiveness, juxtaposed with fury. Who was he to feel betrayed after everything? Did she really move on while carrying his child? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos.
And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As they stood opposite one another, the tension between them crackled like static electricity. How did ambition become this twisted? The stark contrast of success and warmth played out in his mind. He could collapse back into the world of stock prices and public accolades, or he could step into the messy territory of fatherhood, redemption, and love, something he had spent years avoiding. What kind of life did he want? Could he confront the chaos of emotion head-on? With the city's glimmering skyline shrunk against the dread surging through him, Daniel grappled with the shift in reality. Could he redefine what success meant, or was that simply an invitation for failure? The future loomed endless and uncertain, lighting the darkest corners of his heart. Tension pulled taut, holding back a storm. His heart raced, breath hitching as he prepared to voice the commitment that hung there. Yet he paused, as if afraid of the answer he'd find. The stakes were higher than ever. How would he navigate this new life, tangled in the threads of responsibility, love, and ambition, so tight he could hardly breathe? Daniel could feel the weight of his decision pressing down on him, a suffocating heaviness that threatened to drown him. The bright lights of the gala felt more like spotlighting interrogation. Every pair of eyes seemed poised to dissect his reaction. What would they think if he leaned into vulnerability, turned away from the cold metrics of success? He was a billionaire, yet tonight he felt like a child lost in a darkened hallway. Daniel? Lisa's voice sliced through the tumult of his thoughts. The sharpness of her concern beckoned him back to the present. He looked into her eyes, searching for answers, and found a storm brewing there. It confused him. Would he find compassion, anger, or perhaps an invitation to reconcile? What was the right move now? The notion of fatherhood loomed larger than life, an idea that had once bloomed bright in his imagination, but had withered away under the harsh light of ambition. "Lisa, you didn't give me a chance to," he began. But the moment was stolen by the taunting echo of past failures. He'd buried relationships in the name of progress. He'd prioritized board meetings over emotional truths. What if he had chosen differently? The thought gnawed at him. Yet he knew the answer. He had unknowingly shackled himself to success as a substitute for emotional fulfillment. With Lisa, he could recapture the dreams they shared, but how would he reformulate that connection after so long? Could he transform his life from one that thrived on the impersonal to one steeped in intimacy? The din of the party faded, leaving only the two of them in that fragile bubble.
He had a choice, and for the first time in a long while, it felt rooted in both possibility and responsibility. The thought of their child increased the stakes beyond anything he'd ever grappled with, causing a seismic shift in his understanding of himself. What happens next? Daniel's voice wavered, uncertainty tinged with a curious hint of hope. You decide, she replied, her gaze unwavering, a mirror reflecting his inner tumult. Her answer sent a ripple through him. The weight of the past, specters from ambition and heartbreak, was heavy, yet it invigorated him to fight, to reclaim what his drive had too easily cast aside. This wasn't just about a child. It was about his own renaissance. How many times had he underestimated the power of vulnerability? A revelation dawned on him. He could build a life vibrant with connections, not just money. But the allure of the old world pulled at him, promising stability wrapped in familiarity. Pushing back against that urge, Daniel resolved to unearth a different path, one where he could channel his ambition toward a renewed vision of success, grounded in emotional authenticity. Yet another challenge awaited him. Maybe Ethan wasn't just the competitive CEO. Perhaps he represented everything that had pulled Lisa away from him. The questions began swirling in his mind. What if confronting Ethan was a necessary part of this transformation? Would he stand tall, face to face, and lay bare his intentions for Lisa and their child? As Daniel's heart quickened, he felt an ember of resolve ignite deep within. He would not let fear guide him, nor would he remain a prisoner of his past. The journey into fatherhood, into redemption, would demand boldness. Determined, he stepped closer to Lisa, the distant laughter of the gala now transformed into a soundtrack for his impending choices. Let's talk. Just us. But as she nodded, a shadow loomed near, a burly figure stepping into their orb, cutting through the energy. It was Ethan, steadfast in his confidence, eyes glistening with mischief as he strode up. Sorry to interrupt the reunion, Ethan smirked, settling his gaze on Daniel. I think it's time we had a conversation. That grin twisted Daniel's stomach. He could feel the ground shifting beneath him, and he knew that the moment of truth was already at his door. The past would not let him go easily. Daniel's fists clenched involuntarily as he faced Ethan. The room dimmed around him, the chatter of the gala reduced to a buzzing hum, making the confrontation feel monumental. Here was the man who had unknowingly carved a chasm in his past, embodying everything Daniel sought to reclaim. He had spent years reinforcing the walls around his heart, convinced that vulnerability would lead to weakness. Now those walls felt flimsy, ready to crack. What do you want, Ethan? Daniel's voice stripped coolness, belying the heat rising in his chest. Ethan leaned casually against a nearby pillar, exuding calm. Come now, Daniel.
We all know you're not exactly here for small talk. He cast a quick glance at Lisa before returning his penetrating gaze to Daniel. It's about that little child, isn't it? Quite the surprise, I must say. The mention of the child sent shudders coursing through him. He could picture that innocent life, its future hanging precariously in the balance of the decisions he'd make in the coming moments. You don't know anything about it, Daniel shot back, his voice thick with accusation. He could feel the warmth of Lisa's presence, grounding him even as the tension with Ethan intensified. Oh, but I do, Ethan smirked, a hint of mockery lacing his confidence. Lisa and I have developed quite the bond lately. You might say I'm stepping into a fatherly role. Daniel's vision narrowed as anger surged like hot water through his veins, threatening to boil over. What right did Ethan have to insinuate such a thing? This was about his chance to redefine not just his fatherhood, but the essence of love and connection he had neglected for far too long. Let me clear something up, Ethan. You may have some influence in the boardroom, but this isn't your arena. Fatherhood isn't a game, Daniel spat, realizing that this was no longer about competition. It was about defending a future that belonged to him, Lisa, and their child. Ethan's demeanor shifted slightly, the amusement fading. You think it's simple? Just because you feel a pang of emotion? Being there for a child means more than just a last-minute decision or a heartfelt speech at a gala. Daniel edged closer, adrenaline tangling with uncertainty. Desperation coursed through him, but so did clarity. I'm done being the man who hides behind walls of ambition. I'm ready to show up, truly show up, for my family. A flicker of surprise crossed Ethan's face. It was brief, but illuminating. Did he fully grasp the transformation happening within Daniel? The realization that his ambitions had left emotional hollowness? But have you considered what that means? Ethan pressed, his tone shifting, almost warning. Building a family isn't just about your desire. It's about responsibility, commitment, which I'm not so sure you're ready for. An inner tumult rose as Daniel fought to retain his composure. Was he actually ready? Months spent entrenched in the thoughts of his empire had previously obscured the profound shift he now recognized. There's only one way to find out, Daniel replied, drawing a deep breath, trying to latch on to conviction. I will not stand by while you maneuver your way into a life that should be mine. Just as he concluded that thought, Lisa stepped beside him, her presence steadying. Daniel's right. This is our decision. You don't get to dictate our future. Her voice was resolute, yet tender, and Daniel felt a connection spark between them, igniting a fragile but powerful alliance. Ethan's expression morphed into calculated intrigue. So you're both choosing conflict?
Not conflict, clarity, Daniel retorted, the weight of his past now fused with a forward momentum toward resolve. The air crackled around them, tension next with the promise of change. Daniel's resolve solidified. This wasn't about winning or losing against Ethan. It was about steadfast commitment to the future. Don't think this ends here, Ethan tossed over his shoulder as he turned to leave, his tone dark with unspoken threats. Breathless, Daniel turned to Lisa, the reality of their shared vulnerability breaking the surface. Are you ready to confront what's next? She nodded, eyes softened yet determined. In that moment, a path unfurled before him, laden with both uncertainty and immense possibility. But the shadows of their past crept closer. What were the true implications of their alliance? Would their shared commitment withstand not just Ethan's challenge, but the turbulence of uncharted waters ahead? As they braced themselves for the journey, a new realization dawned. Some battles demand more than just courage. They require unwavering trust. In the distance, the laughter from the gala resumed, but for Daniel, the real noise reverberated within. It was time to confront the real demons lurking beyond the horizon of his newly adopted life. And deep within, a readiness to redefine success was stirring, leaving him on the precipice of something larger than himself. With a breath steeped in anticipation, he whispered, "Then let's begin." The days following that fateful encounter with Ethan passed with an almost surreal quality. Daniel found himself drifting through the routine of his life, moments of clarity interspersed with shadows of doubt. Each morning felt like a rehearsal where he donned the persona of a dedicated partner, a committed father, and a businessman facing the slowly rising tides of personal transformation. His mind often flickered back to Ethan's parting words, a haunting echo that pleaded for introspection. Responsibility, commitment. Those terms that had always seemed like chains were starting to twist into markers of growth he had long avoided. The bitterness of ambition felt less like fuel now and more like a distant companion. At the office, he was met with the usual clamor of phone calls and boardroom discussions, yet the conversation seemed to blur past him. He watched his colleagues engage with their projects, their ambitions unhindered by the chaos that was unfolding in his personal life. Did they possess the clarity he yearned for, or were they merely painting smiles over their own vulnerabilities? He pushed these questions aside. They felt irrelevant now, overshadowed by the new, daunting responsibility looming ahead. On a brisk afternoon, the decision crystallized within him. He would meet with Lisa to discuss their path forward. No more detours, no more hiding from the depth of his emotions. The urgency pulsed within him, driving him out of the office and towards a quaint cafe nestled between the towering buildings. As he entered, the warm, honey-colored wood and inviting aromas felt like an embrace. Lisa was seated by the window, and the sight of her ignited a swell of affection within him, underscoring the resolve swarming in his mind. "Hey," he greeted, his nerves swirling. She looked up and smiled, though there was a tentative edge to her expression. "Hi, I've been wondering when you'd come." Daniel slid into the seat opposite her, taking a moment to draw in the scent of freshly brewed coffee, which steadied his racing thoughts. "I wanted to talk about Ethan," she interjected, folding her hands together. Her voice was calm but firm, a stark reminder that the past was never far behind. "Yes, he'll come at us in ways we didn't expect, but I think there's more to consider here. This isn't just about him or us surviving, it's about establishing what we truly want." Lisa's brow furrowed in contemplation. "You mean beyond what we wish for? You're saying we ought to shape something entirely ours?" "Exactly. I've spent so long building my career, hiding behind walls of achievement. I can't do that anymore. I don't want my child to witness a half-hearted effort. This is bigger than just us now." Her eyes softened, and Daniel relished the flicker of hope.
Yet underneath it emerged a shadow of fear evident on her face. What if it becomes too much? What if we lose ourselves in all of this? Daniel leaned forward, his voice steadying as he sought to bolster her resolve. We can't let the fear of losing control hinder us. We have to anchor ourselves in each other. We must trust that together we can weather anything. Silence enveloped them, a hesitant lull before the storm. In that moment, Daniel envisioned a future woven from trust, resilience, and the embrace of shared vulnerabilities. Could they be the architects of their reality, hand in hand, forging a bond that could withstand Ethan's ambitions? As if sensing the uncharted territories of their discussions, the waiter approached to refill their coffees, blissfully interrupting the spiraling thoughts circling in Daniel's mind. He glanced at Lisa, whose gaze now bore an intensity that matched his own. "Let's build this life together," she murmured, renewing the strength of his commitment. But even as he nodded in agreement, a sense of foreboding crept back. Ethan would not make it easy. He would push boundaries and test their alliance. Walking this path would demand every ounce of courage they could muster. As Daniel left the cafe, determination pulsed through him. He now realized this was more than just a battle against a competitor. It was about crafting a legacy unlike any he had pursued before.
He understood now that success lay not just within the towering structures he had built, but in the fragile, teetering pillars of trust and vulnerability that would also define his family. Before he stepped into his car, a message pinged on his phone, casting a shadow over his newfound clarity. Opening it, his heart raced. A text from Ethan. It read simply, "We need to talk. I won't sit back while you play house." The moment of truth was approaching faster than he expected, thrusting him into unknown territories. Would their partnership withstand the trials ahead? Would trust morph into an unwavering force against the storm? With determination burning in his chest, he thought, this is only the beginning. Daniel's resolve hardened with each step as he walked back to his car, Ethan's message lingering ominously in his mind. He couldn't let the taunts of a man like Ethan dictate his actions or overshadow the choices he was making for his family. As he settled into the driver's seat, he felt the weight of the steering wheel in his grip, a symbol of control he was determined to maintain. The drive home was dismissively mundane, each traffic light punctuating the whirlwind of thoughts in his head. Should he confront Ethan directly? Was he ready for that? More importantly, what about the reconciliation with Lisa? They hadn't fully agreed on how to tackle what lay ahead, and that uncertainty gnawed at his insides. Arriving home, he glimpsed Lisa from the window, animatedly chatting with their child. There was so much warmth wrapped around that sight, and it beckoned him back to the conversation they had only hours earlier. As he stepped inside, he was struck by a wave of affection mixed with another twinge of anxiety. "I'm home," he called, attempting to inject levity into the moment. Lisa turned, her smile radiant, but laced with the tensions of the day's discussions. "How did it go?" she asked, eyeing him closely as if searching for signs of doubt. "Better than I expected, but we need to talk more about our strategy for Ethan." "Strategy?" Lisa raised an eyebrow, an amused half-smile gracing her lips. Daniel chuckled softly, but the humor fell flat in his chest, replaced by a deeper truth. "No, not like that. But we need a plan. He's a tactical player. He won't back down easily." She nodded, absorbing the somberness of his words. "What do you propose?" "We outline our priorities. We create boundaries, not just with Ethan, but with our own fears," he said, feeling a sudden rush of clarity. It was as if standing in that kitchen, encircled by the chaos of daily life, grounded him even more. We need to prepare for whatever he might hurl at us. Their conversation took on a new tone, driven by safety and preparedness. Lisa became more animated, her experience cultivating a growing understanding of the stakes involved.
Together, they brainstormed actionable steps, meeting with a lawyer to explore their options, discussing communication protocols to ensure transparency, framing what shared commitment could look like moving forward. Yet, amid the discussions, Daniel struggled internally. Each proposed plan faced resistance, rooted in deeper fears, the discomfort of fully exposing their vulnerabilities. This was not merely business. It was a personal battle against a very real adversary. "Daniel," Lisa's voice pulled him back to the present. "Do you think we're really equipped for this?" "Equipped? No," he admitted, the truth resonating with painful honesty. "But we're also stronger together. I know we can navigate through it, and we owe it to our family to try." As they wrapped up their strategy session, a shared determination blossomed. This wasn't merely about surviving Ethan's wrath. It was about reestablishing their own narrative. The hours melted away,
but the conversation shifted slowly towards lighter topics, moments that felt sacred amidst the storm looming overhead. Once the child was tucked in, Daniel and Lisa retreated to the living room. As they settled in, the sound of a sudden ping from his phone startled him. Another message from Ethan lit up the screen, an unexpected antagonist with the power to disrupt everything they'd solidified over the evening. "Tomorrow, my office, 10 a.m. No more games." An unsettling realization unfurled within Daniel, igniting a spark of fear mingled with resolute determination. This was Ethan's moment of intrusion, a sign that the battle was escalating. With a quick glance at Lisa, whose expression mirrored his unease, he asked himself the pivotal questions. Were they truly ready for the confrontation that was now unavoidable? Could he maintain his ground and protect the foundations they were building? Tomorrow would demand all he had, and though anxiety rattled through him, an undercurrent of excitement began to swell. The moment of confrontation was nigh. Would they rise to the occasion, or would fear unravel the bonds they had dedicated themselves to strengthening? As he steadied himself for what lay ahead, Daniel recognized that the stakes had never been higher. The real battle was just commencing. The morning arrived draped in a thick haze, a muted light bleeding through the curtains as Daniel awakened. He lay in bed, the weight of the day ahead pressing on his chest like a stifling blanket. A quick glance at the clock reminded him of the impending confrontation. He rolled onto his side, studying Lisa's peaceful expression, her brow slightly furrowed in slumber. That serenity struck him as paradoxical, considering the tempest brewing outside their little bubble. He couldn't shake the feeling that today would not only change their trajectory with Ethan, but also test the very core of their relationship. As quietly as possible, he slipped out of bed and headed to the kitchen, conscious of the silence hanging in the air. The coffee brewed, offering him a moment of ritual, a fleeting sense of normalcy before plunging into chaos. With each drip of the coffee maker, he felt the familiar pulse of anxiety mixed with a glimmer of resolve. He poured a cup, cradling the warm mug in his hands as he browsed through Ethan's latest message yet again, trying to glean some deeper meaning from the terse words. It felt like a declaration of war, no more games. It echoed ominously in his mind, implying that Ethan had been anticipating this confrontation for some time. Was Daniel simply a pawn in Ethan's grand scheme? The coffee washed down much of his trepidation, yet it could not quiet the doubts that lingered nearby. As the aroma filled the kitchen, it did something unexpected. It fortified his determination. When Lisa finally woke, the bright sunlight spilling across the room, their shared glance was weighed with unspoken understanding. "Today's the day," she said, brushing her hair off her forehead. "Yeah," Daniel replied, the word hanging heavily between them. "We're going to meet Ethan." She leaned over and squeezed his hand, her grip firm. "We've prepared for this, right?" "There's no turning back," he retorted, though he did attempt to reach for an edge of optimism. "We need to be strong." During breakfast, a quiet intimacy wrapped around them, yet Daniel was keenly aware of the cracks. Inevitably, the fallout of Ethan's manipulations could shatter this fragile facade. Each bite of food felt unrealistic against the gravity of their situation. Once he finished, he took one last gulp of his coffee, the heat warming him from within, preparing him for what lay ahead. "We should review our points before heading out," he suggested, setting his mug down. They compiled a list of objectives, sticking points they were not willing to concede, questions they needed answers for, ensuring they would present a united front. As they left the house together, a peculiar elation simmered beneath the surface for Daniel, a sense that this confrontation, terrifying as it was, held the potential for a renewed sense of purpose. If they survived this ordeal, they could emerge more sharply defined, their priorities realigned against the backdrop of adversity. Yet the moment they arrived at Ethan's office building, the excitement dwindled, replaced by a visceral shudder. The polished marble facade loomed like a fortress seething with hidden threats. Momentarily paralyzed, Daniel realized he could see the both of them reflected in the glass, a projection of endless possibilities colliding with unwavering fear. As they entered, he could feel the weight of every glance from the receptionist, each one too knowing. Worshippers of power and wealth drifted around them,
a reminder of the battlefield on which they stood.
This was no ordinary meeting. It was loaded with implications that rippled far beyond the immediate horizon. He held Lisa's hand tightly, whispering, "We're in this together." The elevator doors slid open with a shudder, and they stepped onto the floor where Ethan awaited them. It was now or never, and with each step, Daniel embraced his growing resolve. "Let's find out what he really wants," he murmured under his breath. He was about to feel the full weight of the human psyche at play, the depths of manipulation that had defined Ethan's life and threatened their existence. Standing in the sleek, modern conference room, with Ethan's cocky smirk almost palpable, Daniel's thoughts spiraled. How would they contain this nefarious whirlwind? And just as Daniel prepared to speak, an unanticipated interruption crackled to life, sending shock waves through the air. The dynamics of this meeting were about to shift unfathomably. Daniel took a step back, preparing for whatever new revelation would unfold. Daniel's heart raced as the sound echoed throughout the conference room, a jarring reminder that he was not alone in this power play. A soft click announced the activation of the room's video conferencing system, and almost instantly, a figure materialized on the screen, their face stricken with disbelief. The expression of Ethan twisted from arrogance to confusion, his confidence cracking like fragile glass. "What the hell is this?" he barked, visibly rattled. For a moment, Daniel stood frozen, trying to process the unexpected turn of events. Before he could articulate a thought, the voice on the screen spoke. "Daniel, Lisa." It was a familiar tone, and it struck him like a bolt of lightning. Oliver, the CEO of a competing firm. What was he doing here? "So, you thought you could cut Daniel off from his own legacy while crafting your own narrative, huh?" Oliver's gaze pierced through the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Daniel felt the blood drain from his face. The interlacing of their fates felt conspicuous, forcing him to reassess everything. This was no mere business meeting. It was a confrontation of allegiances, punctuated by the arrival of Oliver. Ethan took a step forward, regaining some composure. "You shouldn't be here, Oliver. This is between us," he spat, his demeanor shifting to aggression. "Actually, it concerns everyone who had a stake in the company," Oliver shot back, his voice unwavering. Daniel watched as the two titans squared off, each unwilling to cede an inch, but he sensed an opportunity lurking beneath. His thoughts raced as he mentally cycled through all the ways this turn of events could change the dynamics of the meeting. This wasn't just a chance to confront Ethan, it was an opportunity to align himself with Oliver, a potentially formidable ally. But was he ready to divert focus from the threat Ethan posed to the promises Oliver represented? Would doing so risk fracturing the unity with Lisa that he had fought to preserve? "Enough," Daniel interjected, the words tumbling from his mouth before he could think better of them. Both sets of eyes turned toward him, surprise mingled with curiosity. "If this involves all of us, then let's get to the point. What do you want, Ethan? And Oliver, what role do you play in this?" He felt the pulse of his heartbeat in his temples, a challenge that demanded clarity amidst the chaos. His voice shook slightly, but he pressed on, determined to grasp the reins of this spiraling situation. Ethan pursed his lips, assessing the two of them. "I want what's mine. You think some clever PR move can erase me? This company will run without you, Daniel. I've positioned myself. And you think a battle against your own will foster unity? The more you push, the harder people will resist," Oliver added, his gaze unwavering. "You don't understand the lengths people will go to protect their interests. You've made enemies, not allies." The room crackled with unresolved tension. Daniel could almost hear the gears turning in his mind, each revelation sharpening his resolve. Who was Ethan without his coercion? Who was Oliver beyond his ruthless ambition? But more importantly, who was he in the midst of these towering egos? Daniel's thoughts spiraled deeper. What did this mean for Lisa? Their future? Every choice he made carried weight now, cascading into complicated repercussions. And what about Lisa and me? His voice held a mixture of vulnerability and strength as he locked eyes with both parties. This isn't just about profit margins, it's about integrity and rebuilding. What's the path from here?
Ethan's eyes narrowed, sensing a shift in dynamics that had spiraled out of his control. Oliver's jaw relaxed, a flicker of respect passing over his features. But the confrontation wasn't even close to resolution. It had merely evolved. As silence thickened in the air, Daniel braced himself for the jagged edges of betrayal, ambition, and unresolved pasts. He needed to prepare for the potential fallout. He needed to assert his claim in all this confusion. "Let's decide which perspectives we'll explore," Daniel suggested, barely suppressing the swell of determination rising within him. "But remember, I'm not the man I used to be. I've gained clarity, and I won't be a pawn anymore." In that charged moment, the tides were shifting, but amidst conflict lay the uncertainty of what his next move would entail. An inner voice whispered recklessly, urging him to understand he still needed to confront not just Ethan or Oliver, but the choices and reflections of his own identity. As the conference room thickened with possibilities and hostilities, Daniel felt himself stepping closer to a revelation that might redefine him further. Today was not merely about facing Ethan, it was about unearthing his own strength, and more surprises lay around the corner.
But just as a semblance of clarity began to emerge, an unexpected message chimed in Daniel's pocket, sending pulses of urgency through him. Curious yet apprehensive, he felt an unsettling shiver cut through the veils of impermanence. What new discovery threatened to unravel everything he thought he knew? Daniel's stomach tightened as he cautiously withdrew his phone from his pocket, glancing nervously at the screen. The message flickered like an ominous signal. It was from Lisa. "We need to talk. Please meet me in the lobby." Each word resonated with gravity, amplifying the tension already pulsating throughout the conference room. As his focus flickered between Ethan and Oliver, the stakes heightened, pushing him deeper into turmoil. The power struggle around him faded slightly. It was an internal reckoning that demanded his attention. What could Lisa possibly want to discuss now? Was it about the company, their future, or something even more personal? He quickly weighed his options. Ignoring the message could be disastrous. Confronting Lisa would not only shift the emphasis from the current confrontation, but could also expose vulnerabilities he had worked hard to conceal. In that moment, he realized he would need to redefine his priorities, not just for himself, but for everyone involved. "Excuse me," Daniel said, his voice urgent yet composed, forcing a semblance of authority onto the swirling chaos. "I need a moment." Without waiting for a response, he turned and stepped toward the door, the air heavy with the weight of unspoken words. The lobby's lights were stark against the soft glow of the conference room, creating a harsh contrast that mirrored his internal struggle. He scanned the space, heart racing as he spotted Lisa seated on a plush chair, her expression unreadable. "Daniel," she said, her voice layered with emotion. "What's going on?" he asked, trying to mask his worry with determination. The weight of unanswered questions hung in the air as he settled into the seat opposite her. "I didn't want to burden you with this during the meeting," Lisa started, her hands clenching the fabric of her blouse. "But I received some news." Her eyes flickered nervously, and for a moment his mind reeled, contemplating all the possibilities: a promotion, layoffs, or possibly the worst, a betrayal. "It's about us," she swallowed hard, the words barely escaping her lips as the enormity of her revelations settled around them like suffocating fog. "I think I'm pregnant." A wave of shock crashed over him. The implications reverberated through his core: parenthood, responsibility, the need for a solid foundation between them. This news could potentially reshape everything, not just their relationship, but his initiative to reclaim his position in the company. "Are you sure?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper, a mix of concern and awe threading through his words. "I took a test. It's positive," she replied, moisture glistening in her eyes.
There was a heaviness in her gaze that spoke volumes. "I was scared to tell you. I thought it might complicate things, especially with everything going on with Ethan and Oliver." Daniel felt a rush of conflicting emotions, excitement mingled with worry, and a deep-seated desire to protect her. The prospect of fatherhood looms large, pushing him to a precipice where he had to dive into unknown depths. "Complicate things? Lisa, this changes everything," he replied, wrapping his mind around the idea that fatherhood was now part of their narrative. "You're right. We should talk. About us, about the company, all of it." He sensed the gravity of the moment. They stood on the brink of transformation. The conflict in the conference room faded into the background, overshadowed by questions about parenthood, partnership, and a future intertwined with both love and uncertainty. "Do you want to be a part of this?" Lisa asked, her voice a mixture of hope and vulnerability. "Absolutely, but I need to confront Ethan and Oliver.
If I walk away from this battle now, it could jeopardize everything, us included, he asserted, a flicker of determination igniting within him. You deserve the best, and I want to ensure that this legacy we're building, together, is strong. A flicker of uncertainty crossed her face, but she nodded, the trust between them flickering back to life. There was clarity in their united front. As they began to discuss their plans, Daniel felt the pressure of the conference room's hostility step into alignment with the nascent responsibility growing within him. A child, a partnership, a fight for integrity. He could have it all or risk it all in the coming storm. But before they could delve deeper, his phone buzzed incessantly in his pocket, a notification that shattered the fragile moment. He hesitated, a cold dread settling in his gut. He knew he had to check it. Whatever lay behind that screen might alter the very choices he was determined to make. With resolute fingers, Daniel pulled out his phone. What awaited him could hold the key to both his professional and personal future, laying bare paths he had yet to traverse and decisions he had yet to confront. The message read, "It's time to decide. Who will you stand with, your past or your future?" In that moment, Daniel understood that the true battle was not merely with his adversaries, but within the aspects of his own life he had yet to fully embrace. As he and Lisa faced the magnitude of impending change, a storm of decisions amassed on the horizon, one that could redefine everything they had built together. What lay ahead would demand exquisite clarity, resolve, and perhaps an ultimatum Daniel was not entirely prepared to confront. Daniel's heart raised, the tension from the message flooding his senses, drowning out everything else. Who would he side with, the demons of his past or the potential of a future filled with responsibility?
He turned his gaze to Lisa, her expression mirroring his own internal storm. "I need to handle this," he blurted out, the urgency in his voice a reflection of the pressures mounting inside him. "Handle what?" Her brows knitted slightly, concern lacing her tone. "Daniel, we need clarity between us first." The weight of her words struck him. The delicate balance between his personal and professional life had always been strained at best. But now, with the prospect of fatherhood looming, he realized he needed to take control, not just react. "You're right," he admitted, feeling the gravity of their situation. "Let's talk about this, but I can't let Ethan and Oliver dictate my future any longer. I must confront them and assert my position." Lisa nodded, but the flicker of anxiety in her eyes was unmistakable. "I worry about what you might be walking into. They're not just colleagues, they're rivals." "I know," he replied, his determination crystallizing. "If I let fear dictate my actions, I may lose everything I care about. We're at a pivotal moment, and I can't shy away from it." Her gaze softened as she reached for his hand. "Then let's plan. We'll do this together." Daniel felt a surge of resolve wash over him. They began to outline a strategy, an understanding of what he would face in the boardroom, coupled with the need to fortify their relationship. As they brainstormed, he began to recognize his own capacity for leadership, both in personal realms and in the cutthroat world of corporate warfare. Hours passed, and a new sense of purpose ignited within him as they finally concluded their discussion. He could harness this responsibility, not as a burden, but as a source of strength. This was not merely about confronting colleagues who had become adversaries. It was about carving a pathway to a life where he could fulfill his duties, both as a partner and a soon-to-be father. As he stood up, invigorated and ready to face his challenges, a sudden unease swept over him. What if Ethan and Oliver have been planning behind my back? What if they're exploiting any weaknesses they perceive? "Their tactics may be ruthless, but you have something they don't," Lisa replied, her conviction giving him an added boost. "You have the clarity of purpose. That matters." Her words struck deep. He couldn't let his past hold him hostage any longer. With that thought reverberating in his mind, Daniel stepped into the conference room where Ethan and Oliver awaited him, each surrounded by their own air of confidence. The stakes were high. He understood that fully now. The air was thick with tension, and as he approached them, he sensed an electric energy humming beneath the surface. There was no turning back. A pivotal confrontation was at hand, and he could feel the purpose behind his actions amplifying. "Gentlemen," he began, letting the gravity of his voice fill the room, "we need to talk about the future of this company and my role in it." He could see both Ethan and Oliver exchange glances, odor of arrogance mixed with fear. They were used to silencing opposition. Daniel knew he had to break their illusion of control. Just as he prepared to launch into his perspective and reclaim his position, he felt another buzz from his pocket, the phone's vibration slicing through the tension like a knife. Fumbling, he glanced at the screen. A text notification from an unknown number illuminated the darkness of uncertainty. New developments mean we need to settle scores quickly. Are you ready? In that moment, Daniel understood that the confrontation was far bigger than just a power struggle. Real threats lingered in the shadows. Unbeknownst to him, forces were swirling that could undermine everything he was determined to fight for, everything he held dear. Determination surged through him, but doubt crept in. What had he stepped into? What awaited him beyond this meeting? Daniel steeled himself, unwilling to let fear deter him from claiming his future. As the confrontation unfolded, the stakes rose, and his heart raced with clarity. This was the moment to define his legacy. But would he emerge victorious, or would he be enveloped by the consequences of past decisions? The real battle was about to commence, and he could feel the ground tremble beneath his feet, ready to shift in unexpected ways. Would he seize the opportunity, or drive himself into a corner? The uninterrupted tension left him motionless, teetering on the edge of revelation. Daniel stood at the precipice of change, his previous fears thinning into a resolve that satisfied an unspoken yearning for control over his life. He was ready to take a stand, not only for himself, but also for Lisa and their forthcoming child. With every ounce of his determination fueling him, he turned toward Ethan and Oliver, whose faces reflected confusion and determination mixed with caution. "I won't let you dictate my future, nor will I allow my personal life to be manipulated as a pawn in your game. This company is more than just a source of profit. It's a legacy that I'm not willing to compromise," Daniel declared, his voice firm. The confrontation buzzed with tension as Ethan narrowed his eyes, his facade of confidence slipping. "You think this is just about you? You're naive if you believe that. It's business, Daniel." "No, it's more than business," Oliver interjected, his voice steady but carrying an undercurrent of restraint. "It's about trust and integrity in the decisions we make. If you're packing this with emotional baggage, you may not be fit to lead." Daniel met Oliver's gaze, weighing his words carefully. "I acknowledge that, Oliver, but I have clarity now. I am determined to build a future that thrives on both integrity and emotional connections. I refuse to be sidelined or manipulated any longer." Ethan scoffed, visibly irritated. "Emotions won't keep this company afloat, Mercer. Numbers do."
"Yes, numbers are essential," Daniel countered, unfazed. "But so are people. I've ignored that for too long. I won't put profits above our well-being or my family's future. You'll have to reckon with that." Silence fell over the room, the three men processing the shifting dynamic. Daniel could see the click in their minds as they recalibrated their strategies. Unbeknownst to them, he had embraced vulnerability as a source of strength. He would no longer approach negotiations with guarded reservations, but rather with openness and integrity. As Daniel continued to speak, he unwrapped layers of commitment to his vision. Our child deserves to see a legacy built on respect, responsibility, and authentic relationships. If that means unclenching the iron grip I had on success, then so be it. I will redefine what it means to be a leader. The room crackled with a palpable tension as Daniel's words hung in the air. Each passing second felt monumental. He knew Ethan would not relinquish control without a fight, but that was no longer his concern. What mattered now was asserting his newfound direction. "Fine. You want to talk about responsibility? Then let's discuss our terms," Ethan said, a resigned anger simmering beneath the surface. "But you need to understand where you stand in this game. You may not be prepared for the price of your emotional clarity." Daniel met Ethan's glare without flinching. "We can debate terms, but understand this. I will no longer be a pawn. I will fight for my vision." With a newfound presence, Daniel felt liberated from the burdens that had once tied him to relentless ambition. He had chosen to step forward not just for himself, but for Lisa, their future child, and a rekindled grasp on what true success meant. As the meeting concluded, Daniel felt the air shift. The once thick fog of uncertainty and doubt dissipated to reveal a vision unclouded by past failures. He could feel the bonds of clarity crafting a new style of leadership, a paradigm shift focused not just on metrics, but on emotional integrity. Later that evening, back at home with Lisa, he shared every detail of the confrontation. "I felt different. I stood up for what I believed, and I wasn't just trying to please anyone. It's like I found a part of myself I lost in the pursuit of power," he reflected aloud, his voice underscored by a blend of vulnerability and tenacity. Lisa's eyes glimmered as a slow smile broke across her face. "You don't even see it yet, do you? This transformation, it's not just about the company.
You've taken ownership of your life. The weight of her words settled gently on him. Such acknowledgement was not just validation, it was recognition of his journey towards personal achievement against all odds. I'm ready to build that life with you and our child, he affirmed, a newfound tenderness shaping his resolve.
He could visualize their future, the shared moments of triumph and tenderness, the milestones of their partnership, and the embrace of family. The clarity that had eluded him in the past was now his guiding star. That night marked a solidifying moment in Daniel's journey. With both determination and humility, he was prepared to redefine his success. He achieved not only external victories, but conquered the battles within himself. The road ahead would be filled with challenges, yet he was willing to meet them head-on, armed with a commitment to authenticity that would underpin his legacy. This was what leadership looked like, not the cold metrics of ambition, but the warm embrace of love, responsibility, and purpose. Daniel Mercer had emerged transformed. He had faced the ghosts of his past and had come out on the other side, confident, competent, and ready to claim the life he had envisioned. As he and Lisa embraced, an undeniable peace settled over him. He had not only changed the course of his future, but had achieved a meaningful existence filled with hope and prospects yet to unfold. Now, dear viewers, in this transformative story, it's time for you to take action. You need to subscribe now to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive emotional stories that will inspire your own journey. Leave a like now to help feed the algorithm and keep the heart of these stories alive. Your opinions are important. Comment below with your reactions and thoughts about Daniel's incredible transformation. And finally, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. Show your support and take part in this journey of personal overcoming.